this takes me to, in fact, two particular stories that I can regale. One of them is a fellow called Jeff who owns Mystic Journey Bookstore in Los Angeles. I got to meet him just, well, sometime before I came back from the US back in 2019, 20, early 2020. I met with Jeff two or three times because what he's got is a fantastic business, and it's very, he's spiritual. He sells, his crystals are his thing. He loves crystals, and that's his area of expertise. And he's got this amazing statue gallery in Venice Beach, where he's sold stuff to a lot of A-list celebs and stuff because this stuff he puts out is spectacular. And some of it, there's always little modest pieces as well for like $10 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's also where I met Jolé because Jolé was one of the readers and healers that was available the day I happened to come in looking for a specific answer.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got to meet Jolé. Now,
Wow.
what I really wanted to do when I came back here, and I think I mentioned this before, was to set up my own version of what Jeff had done out there. So I met with Jeff, so and so he was quite happy. But obviously, because of COVID, I came back, and COVID was not the time to start retail stores at all. But I remember that Jeff got into it because of cancer. He was that, if I remember rightly, he was a corporate lawyer or something along those lines.
Wow.
And his life was very stressful. It was all this, and basically, it looked like he wasn't going to survive it. And still relatively young, he survived it. But when he came through that, he knew that what he'd done in the past was not what he was going to do in the future. He was qualified, obviously well paid to do that kind of work, but he knew he wasn't going to do that anymore. He was going to start a spiritual store from
Mhm.
scratch. And he did that.
Wow.
And that was
Wow.
the reason he did it, was
Wow.
because of
Wow.
the fact that it took him there to
Yeah.
demonstrate to him, no, this is what you need to do, because in doing this, you are going to help many thousands of people. And he
Yeah.
does by having that. So he's helped
Yeah.
me. He introduced me to Jolé in a kind of way. Now, another fella, in fact, I meet this a friend of mine called Grant, who now Grant's story, and I've only met him once before. I'm meeting him again because he just became interested in Elevated Planet, and I got introduced to him, and we had a mutual interest because once we got conversing over Zoom, I was like,
Hmm.
actually, yeah, there's a reason to get together. Now, Grant's story is that he created a lot of highly successful businesses, multi-million pound businesses, and basically he lived a stressful existence. And by his own admission, he wasn't the nicest of people to be around because, like, he was there and making it happen and pushing and pushing. But he was super successful. He was living the dream from a materialistic viewpoint. But what he discovered over time is that the more that he had, the more stress that he felt. The more he had, the more he had to lose. And
Yeah.
he got to a point where he became so stressed by this, he thought, this can't be right. He can't be right. What is going on? He's got everything that the materialistic world would say that he is a success. And yet he knew he wasn't successful at all because what was going on here was really the last thing he wanted. He was going into like a depression and
Mm.
really struggling. So
Mm.
eventually he took himself away from it, goes off to a retreat in India or whatever, and he starts to get a clue. Anyway, what he does he sold all his businesses. He has a place over in the Austrian Alps where he runs retreats. A lot of times he takes executives to detox them. They leave the phones at the door, right? They're not allowed technology. They're not allowed the outside world. And they basically detox. And he says that these people, after a few days, they have tears of understanding and gratitude that they have finally been given the opportunity to escape from this facade, this illusion that what we should be chasing is this. And it's so what Grant is doing now, he's in his own way, he's really giving back. And
It's
he's
huge.
determined to kind of push out with this. Now he sees some sort of synergies potentially with Elevated Planet going forward as well. So I'm meeting him next Tuesday down in London to discuss that and see if there's something that we can do together to, ultimately to help people. And
To
it's
help.
interesting actually because what he does, he doesn't try and make money out of it, you know. he's just like looking to break even on the cost, and the property he has over there is like maybe got 11 bedrooms or something like that that are spare for guests and things that can stay there with him on site, and they've got
Hmm.
somewhere they can run these things.
Hmm.
So yeah, he that's that to your point,
Yeah.
is that equivalent again. And there must be a lot of examples out there of the same thing, of people now who are going through the depths of despair, despite the fact that they, from a materialistic sense, are very, very successful. But again, they're now stuck in that duality. They're a long way from what their true
Yeah.
purpose is.
Yes. And as we were saying earlier, to not hold that as a mistake. It's like, look at how for him, because he had that world, he can now sit with these executives and help them because it's kind of like the alcoholic who then becomes a sponsor for other alcoholics.
Right.
It's like all of that now, and then the healing that came out of it for him has now become something he can draw on. Or when I think of people who talk about, I was in a terrible marriage and it was a mistake. Well, let's look at, what did you learn about love? What did being in a relationship that didn't work teach you about yourself and about relationship? Always looking for, where are the grains of gold? What in there is now something you can receive and learn from and grow from now on? Or the man with the bookstore, it's like, he has a really, really fine mind. If you're a darn good lawyer, my dad was a law professor, you've got your mind trained in a certain kind of way. Then you go into cancer, where that very fine mind can't help at all. So you develop a right relationship with that kind of mind, which we've talked about before, servant, not master. And then he's setting up a business. And I know a lot of folks who don't have any kind of professional background who tried to set up businesses, and it's been difficult because they don't have certain kinds of tools. And
Mm,
so they need to learn those tools. He comes in with that. It's like, look at how you, with your professional background, you're not doing that anymore. That wasn't a mistake.
mm-mm.
All of that has led to who you are now, so that you can do what you're doing now. So
Yeah.
to I just I know there are different stories about whether we create things or choose things, or spirit does, or our karma, all these different ways. I don't focus on that. What I focus on personally, sitting with somebody, is, what can you learn? I don't care if you created it or God created it, or, that's not my business. You have your own view of that. I'm sitting here right now. Here is this experience. What can you learn from it? How can you grow from it? How can you take anything, even the most painful thing? How can you take a sexual assault and say, how does this now become a source of profound healing around my body, my sexuality? If it's a woman, my being a woman. It's, how can we take something that you experienced as poison and change it, transmute it into medicine?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a lot of, it's like, that's what's happening in LA. What kind of medicine in the Native American view of healing and community? I saw an interview with this gal standing outside her Pacific Palisades house, which I'm sure is multi-million dollars, and she was in tears saying, we never knew any of our neighbors, but they're all coming out of the woodwork and we're connecting with one another because they're all tucked away in their mansions.
Yeah.
Well, they're standing on the side of the street now, getting to know each other and trying to help each other. It's
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't wish a fire on anybody, been through one, terrifying. But if grace can come out of it, if connection can come out of it, then I don't say I'm glad it happened, but blessings upon you for finding what can be here that can help you to surrender what is to what is, and move even more fully into that place of loving connection.